retail right on the corner there. So this is the farmer's market, and there would be something right on the corner there and possibly on the corner here. So that's what those little wings are about. There's the yoga space and the residential, green belt flowing through, expanded parking in the center, easily accessible to town hall. Whoops, didn't get in there. Yeah, that that's we were working very fast this afternoon. So, but it's right there. Okay.
What did
Yeah. Yeah.
what was the thinking? What did you accomplish by separating the library out?
This just said that the performance space is just, it sits by itself. It's more of a sculptural element. It just celebrated it as its own thing. It sits in the park. The library is close to it, so there can be an association between the two. But the library can also look out onto this oak grove. It can have some of those community spaces that face the oak grove. And having those next to each other would be a good relationship without actually having them part of the same.
Is it taking space from
From the cultural center?
No, well,
Oh, taking
Yeah.
space from this site.
what would be there in the other ideas that now the library is on that part of the property?
Well, let's see.
I-
In the first scheme, we have the Civic Center that sits there. So that occupies it in the first scheme. In the second scheme, there's nothing there, but that probably means that you're utilizing some of those functions for parking, but you're still converting to oak grove. And then in the third scheme, actually, I can just talk to this since we've got it up here. So in the third scheme, it either goes here or it goes there. And in the case that it's attached to the cultural center, this would be the same as in the second scheme. You would have this as Oak Preserve. Maybe you extend the parking a little bit farther in this direction.
I think in this session there was some discussion about working space in the library that would be disrupted if there was an event on the green. And as more and more events, we hope, come to the green, the one person thought that maybe they need a quieter space to work.
Yeah.
I think in our session we talked about all the roofs being accessible, maybe green roofs, balconies, all sorts of activity on the roofs.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I think the possibility of roof terraces and green roofs just adds another level of interest to this. To be able to experience the town green from up above, from a roof terrace, would be quite nice. Yep.
I'm just curious about the existing blueprint of the green, because it seems odd to me to keep the existing blueprint, because you'd end up with a children's playground right in front of a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And is that something considered, that it would be a little bit to the left? Right there is the children's playground, but I think in some of the other schemes, it's like the hotel front is right in front of a playground.
In the scheme where the hotel is here, there would be direct relationship. In this scheme, it's housing and retail across from the playground. There's actually a nice relationship between retail and playground, because parents can get a coffee or something from the retail, and one parent can stay with on the playground. So there are a number of examples. Actually, this came up in some of our sessions, like in the Marin Mart in Larkspur, where they've got a playground right in the middle of the shopping center. There's it's a way to have the kids stay happy while the parents can do a little bit more shopping. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
I was actually more concerned as a parent for all the strangers coming in tourism right next to a community park.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to just run through very quickly the other part of both exercises was looking at precedent images. And so we had all these images hanging up on the walls in the space where we were working, and we asked people to put dots on things that resonated with them. This first category of images was called quality and materiality, and this was a notion that you can be deliberate in this next development on the Civic Center land to do something very just to be deliberate about the quality of the design, the architecture, the materials, and just be specific about that. And if there are things that we can learn from the Thiessen development that you would do differently in the new area, this would be a good time to define what that is. And so this image is obviously a winery. It actually may be a residence, but the point is that it's a material and a quality that draws on the heritage of the rural landscape. And so when you start thinking about the kinds of materials that sort of fit with the image of Windsor and the rural landscape, this was something that we had a lot of dots on. So just not that this is, exactly the thing that would be a civic center or a hotel, but this feel of materials and quality was something that resonated with people. Likewise, this is obviously a winery, but it's just got a great feel. It responds to the rural heritage, and this is one that also had a lot of dots on it. Then we had a category called mixed use, and this was one of the images that got a lot of attention. This is actually a project in Lafayette, and it has retail on the ground floor within a setback second and third floor. So there's actually space for a little patio area here. And I think most of this space on the second and third floor is office, if I'm not mistaken, or it could be office on the second and residence on the third. Do you happen to know, Steve? It's all office, okay. So that's one precedent. This was just an image from Boulder, Colorado, and I think, it just spoke to, here's retail, very active, and then some second level, some third level, maybe once in a while pops up to fourth level, but a really active street and active retail frontage. And then there was a category of boutique hotel, and again, just speaking to scale, look, feel, this is one that got a lot of response. This is another one. This is in San Diego in Little Italy. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 story, and it actually has pieces that pop up to 5, which I think we're not really talking about here. Are the models that we were looking at were more limited in height, but just in terms of qualitatively, what's its contribution, what's it doing on the ground floor, the way that the mass is articulated a little bit. This is one that resonated with folks. This got a lot of dots. This is the Portola Valley Civic Center. And if you've ever been to Portola Valley, you almost don't notice this when you're driving by, and that's deliberate. I think that's who Portola Valley wants to be. These buildings kind of blend in with the landscape. There are big groves of trees and fields around them. The road doesn't even have a curb. It's very low key, and as you go by, it's like, what was that? It looked like a shed, But then when you get closer, it's like, wow, this is really an interesting design, and there's a certain warmth, and it really fits with the landscape. This is the library at Santa Rosa Junior College, and I think this image really resonated with people, that you could have spaces on the second floor of the library that might be community gathering spaces, or just places to hang out and work on your laptop or whatever, and be able to look down on the town green. And so I think the notion of, can we start to stack the library a little bit to get this kind of orientation, was appealing. And then this is another image. This is the Palo Alto Children's Library, but kind of thing where you have these multi-purpose rooms. They can open out onto a garden. The image, or the plan we looked at, where the library could look, the backside of it could look towards the oaks. You could imagine that you look out to a little garden and then the oaks beyond, but to have this sort of indoor-outdoor relationship. And the Green Center at Sonoma State, so the idea that you have an indoor portion, and then you can open up the back and expand that outward into the town green, I think is something that appealed to people. This was just interesting. It's a performing arts center, but very much in a sort of an understated architectural expression. That's open. So that's the lighting inside on the stage. So you're seeing the stage beyond here.
At the Barlow, they have the community market is another place. It's another place where they can open up one whole side.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if
Yeah,
anyone-
just to have that flexibility of use,
Yeah,
so you can
and
have
it
open
just-
or closed. It's nice.
fun. Yeah.
This is in Yountville. So this is their community center, and it's just got a little outdoor performance area, and that works really nicely. This got a lot of positive response. And then this is in the category of agro-retail. And again, this is the Shed in Healdsburg, but it's just a very flexible, open space that you can have a number of different purveyors, places to eat, places to get coffee. You could, have art. You could have home and garden products or food. So it could be sort of a mixed format. Wine tasting. I think this was talked about a lot, and this image I think was appealing for that reason, to really feature a little bit more of the wine country on the town green. This was just another image. The idea here was that you have the agro-retail where you can actually, eat there if you want. So there's seating inside. And that concludes our presentation. So I think we still have plenty of time, and we can take questions, and we can just continue the discussion.
I just want to say thank you, because you guys came. Of course, we should mention that Jen was involved with the original design on the green, the green itself.
Mm.
But I think you did a great workshop, and your listening and sharing was really good. So I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you.
Hi. For each of the different schemes, where the newer buildings or mixed retail, hotel, community center, are there's going to be roads through there, or those be like closed to pedestrian access only? What is the concept there?
I think we went back and forth a lot on that issue, and I think where each of them settled is that we could close the road in front of the current library because that performance venue wants to come up and touch the stage, essentially. Now, the current stage would need, if you did that, the current stage would have to be redesigned because it would need to serve both as just plain seating when there's an indoor event, but it would have to serve as a stage when, there's an outdoor event only. but that whole cultural complex, performing arts, would push right up into where that parking is. Whereas the other blocks, where the retail housing or retail boutique hotel, for the retail to be successful, it would need vehicular access and parking along that frontage. However, what there was a lot of support for was to have a much wider sidewalk on the retail side. Right now on the south edge, there's not a very wide sidewalk until you get to the corners, and it opens up into patios, so it's difficult to do outdoor dining. But we even talked about in one group that if you look at KC Kitchen and that, a broad patio that you could do, so let's say you had a wide sidewalk and that had space for a dining patio to extend out a little bit. You could have more tree planting, and you really expand that pedestrian zone to so you don't have such a dominance of the parked cars. Other questions or comments?
I understand your process here, but I'm a little bit puzzled. Last year, the council commissioned a telephone survey, 300 participants. I don't know if you or your company was involved at all, but they did a survey by phone of voters in Windsor, and that would represent the residents as opposed to the stakeholders that you interviewed. And the result on the specific question about the town green, whether any, as far as removing or relocating the current buildings and replacing them either with a hotel and a conference center, 58% of the respondents said it was totally undesirable. And if in the alternative of using commercial or mixed use, 60% said it was undesirable out of the 300 who were polled. So I'm not hearing that there's any representation by around that point of view. This seems to be just moving along on its own, has a life of its own. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, I can comment about what I know. So I think that our sort of guiding document was the station area specific plan that is very deliberate about this notion of completing the town green, about bringing retail around the northern edge, not occupying the entire northern edge, but having some sort of a civic use that still touches the green, but that notion of bringing the active edge around, which is very specifically about a retail edge. It also encourages mixed use, which would entail other uses on top of the retail. So, that document, which went through its own process, I think was presented to us as something that was representative of the broader strategy around the downtown and around the station area, and that the aspects of it that describe the Civic Center site itself were representative of the community direction. And so I think we were sort of following the guidance of that effort. Robert, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or yeah, okay. Other questions or comments?
What happens next?
What happens next is we need to take these back and do a little bit more detailed study of measuring square footages and measuring parking areas and making sure everything matches, in terms of being able to park, the level of density that we're showing on here. And then I think we're going to meet with city staff to determine what this final document should be. There's a certain amount of advantage to having framework and elements in place that are kind of very deliberate and fixed, but having other aspects of the plan that are a little bit more flexible. And so, for example, it may be useful to have a preferred direction with an alternate, and these three have some similarities, but they have some differences. And so I think the next step is to meet with city staff and to determine, are there some of these aspects of the plans that can be combined, and then have an option, an option to that combined scheme, or whether we want to really try to put this into sort of one preferred direction. And so I think that's a conversation that we'll have next.
So I hear I'm in the minority. However, a lot of my neighbors and community friends have shared the sentiment, and I'll just say I don't want a hotel, and I'd really like to see a scheme in this mix that represents the residents' point of view as demonstrated in the community survey, community engagement survey that was recently done. And I'd really like to see one on the table that has an option where a hotel is not included.
Okay.
And I really just want to echo what you said. It's probably not the minority group, and not any disrespect to you. There was some discussion as to whether this whole study was needed and what the founding principles of the study should be. And so some of us that came into the process a little bit later, I feel like that there was a bias going into the study. There was only really a specific group of people that gave you direction to start. And then all the rest of the information was from the residents and the citizens was filled in later. And as they said, they had done other surveys and studies which had nothing to do with you previous, that gave them indication as to where people felt and how they wanted to proceed. So there's a small disconnect that is probably not your disconnect, but that some of the residents are really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just sort of needs to be stated. I don't feel I'm in the minority on that statement of it. And the first time I heard anything about a hotel was this week, and that was really very developmental and business driven. It was not community driven. It was not civic driven. So I just really wanted to go on the record and share that.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's helpful. I will say that, I think if you talk to the folks that were participating in the sessions this week, it was pretty, it was open table. We reflected the ideas that were put on the table by the participants. There were residents there. There were also business owners, and maybe they weren't a representative group, but I think I made every attempt to respond to the folks that were there and to reflect the ideas that were put on the table. And so, it's possible that, we need to somehow get some broader input, and that wasn't reflective of some other parts of the community.
So we are in the process of doing a general plan update, and that survey that you're referencing, that was one of the many angles that we've taken. So the town has about 27,000 residents, so the 300, it is a small portion of the representative sample. And so there were a variety of activities similar to this that we've been doing. We had another joint session meeting last night, and it's going to continue going forward. So I do recommend that if there's something about this that you're not really feeling good about, please attend those meetings. There's plenty of opportunities to go speak up with regard to the general plan. Council definitely does listen to the voice of the community, so please attend those if you have time.
I think what I've learned in participating in the community a lot was on the original General Plan Advisory Committee, was one of the founding members of Windsor Youth Soccer, was one of the founding members of the Business Improvement District here. And what I find is when you get involved and engaged, things change in a way that you can't imagine. In other words, I meet people this week, and some of the ideas totally inspired and shifted some of the thinking that I would have entered with. So I think one of the one of the community engagement challenges is how can we come together and dialogue with each other and engage with each other. And I think that's important, because as we hear each other, which is a level above, let's say, just the survey, which doesn't necessarily have a context, it helps you build relationships with your neighbors in a way that enables you to think with them. And I just think that's really important.
Other questions, comments? Great. Thank you all for coming. And all of your input is appreciated and noted, and this process is going to continue. So I think there will be plenty of other opportunities to weigh in. Thank you very much.